As much as there's better options out there than generic Android boxes, I know a lot of you still have them and you still use them, but they might be running extremely slow. So I wanted to go through a bunch of methods to speed up your Android box and different settings we can change and adjust that might make it work just a little bit better. Now, these will include a secret settings menu halfway through that you probably didn't even know existed, and a fail-safe if nothing else is working. Now, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button right down below, give this video a big thumbs up, and like always, for the first hour to 2 hours of this video, I answer all of your questions and comments down below. So drop a line, and if I missed any suggestions, let me know down below and we'll try to add it to the list. The first thing I want to address is the most obvious problem, and that is your internet. And I want to show you how you can check out your internet and whether it's working to a decent degree. So we're going to go to settings right here, and I want you to go to your network setting right here. Now, the first thing I like to check is my Wi-Fi to make sure I have a strong connection. Now, you can see these Wi-Fi signals are fully shaded in, so they're completely white. If you go to see all, as you go down, you'll see less and less shaded in, and this just means you have a weaker connection. Now, sometimes even when you have full bars, you still might not have the strongest connection. However, that just means it's at least optimal. So if you have a shaded connection, then you definitely need to either move your router or modem closer or get some sort of Wi-Fi booster. That will almost always help your speed tremendously. Like, it makes a huge difference. Now, your other option is pretty simple as well. Most Android boxes, because they're pretty generic systems, they almost always come with one of these. That's a little right there. Oh, my pressing right there. That's a little Ethernet port. It's kind of hard to see on this one. It's because it's pretty black. So an Ethernet port means you can plug it directly into your router and modem. Now, this will require you to run a cord. However, that is the best way to get the maximum speed possible on your device. So now that we have Wi-Fi out of the way, let's talk about your apps a little bit and your storage. So when we go into apps and click see all apps, and depending on your system, it may look a little different how you get into your menu, but it's practically the same thing. Apps have a bunch of different options and permissions that we can change and adjust, as well as storage. So every app takes up some amount of storage. Here you can see it's using almost 300 megabytes of internal storage. However, that is internal storage. There's also something called cache. Now, cache is built up temporary data over time that's basically used by the app to open things quicker or to do certain processes. Sometimes this can be perfectly fine and doesn't affect performance. Sometimes it can. So every once in a while, I do suggest clearing the cache, especially if you have low space. That can be done just by clicking on it. There's also cache cleaners as well. And if the app is giving you a ton of issues, you can force stop it and also clear data. Clear data is going to completely wipe the app. So basically, it's like opening it for the first time. Now, I almost always suggest turning off notifications because it's just an extra process that's going to run in the background. And I also suggest going into permissions, and there are different permissions we can change up. So if your app needs your location to run, you'll need to leave that on. But there are some, as we go through this list, you'll see that don't need to be on at all, such as for ExpressVPN, you won't need your camera on. So that's one less process that needs to run. Now, when you go back to your app menu, you'll also see special app access. So this has a few different things on it that we can mess around with, such as display over other apps. Now, you're going to need it to display typically over like Dragonbox. So this, I think, is the actual operating system. But there will be options in here where you don't need to display it over. Those can definitely be turned off. In terms of usage access, turning these off can also slightly speed up your system. Again, it's just less processes running. So if you don't need it to access certain things here, the package installer you might need to, shell you might need to, storage manager you'll probably need to. But there are certain things such as Bluetooth or Aptoid in this example where it just doesn't need to be on. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about is storage, because storage is really important on Android boxes. Sometimes they come with incredible amounts of storage. I'm talking about ROM, not your RAM. And they have 64 gigabytes. They have 128. Sometimes they just have 8. And that can be an issue. We know that from your Fire Stick, that having a low amount of storage, especially as you start to fill it up, can make a difference. So when we go to device preferences and scroll down to storage, we're going to see how much memory you have. So here you can see the internal shared storage is 8 gigabytes. And it will typically give you a breakdown. For some reason, mine here isn't giving me an actual breakdown of the amounts. So on most systems, it'll have another menu. Now, as that 8 gigabytes goes down, which it typically only ends up being 5 with the installed system and the installed operating system, you're going to notice performance can have issues, right? You have less storage. So I almost always suggest leaving at least 1.5 to 2 gigabytes of internal storage open. And one way we can get rid of stuff is to go to apps. And like I said, we can go here and we can delete apps we don't use. So if you don't use, Chrome, for example, 300 megabytes it's using up, you can uninstall that. So definitely go and uninstall apps you don't use, especially if you have a low amount of storage. And that also means apps that are running in the background won't be anymore, especially if you have them open at one point. So it's less apps you have to force close as well. Now, I do feel like on Android boxes, people often forget to update them. And this is because you're just like, it's an Android box, whatever. And your Fire Stick usually auto updates. However, that's not typically the thing with Android boxes. So for this, you're going to go to the About section, click on it, and you're going to see System Update. I suggest doing your system updates. Most of them have OTA updates, so over-the-air updates, and you can get it done in minutes. So click System Update. It will walk you through a process. Again, your screen might look a little bit different than mine. However, right here, you can see I have an 800 megabyte update, which is going to optimize the system and fix minor bugs. So you can definitely do those OTA updates. They do take a while, but they can be worth it in a lot of cases. Now, this is one menu that a lot of you probably don't have. It's called Developer Options. Now, this is a hidden menu that we have to activate by doing a prompt of keys, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So in order to get this section, which has a ton of settings that can definitely speed up your system and can mess things up in some cases, I'm going to show you how to do that. So scroll up until you find the About section. Again, this might be slightly different on your system, but there will be an About section in settings. Click on it, and you want to scroll down until you find your build version. Now, yours is going to say something entirely different. That's pretty normal. You're going to click on it 5 to 7 times until it says you are now a developer. I'm already one, so it says you are a developer. I'm not actually, I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. Now, when you go back one menu, you're going to notice developer options right here. And this has a ton of cool stuff we can play around with. Now, I do want to do a separate video breaking down every developer options option here and teach you how to use them. But for now, I'll teach you some of the favorite ones I like to mess around with. The first one is animation scale and animation duration. So an animation is when we click back, for example, you saw that fade in and out, right? When we click, it fades into the next menu. So we can completely get rid of that animation. And that will actually seemingly at least speed things up to the extent that you can move faster. So for here, I'm going to click animation off, click animation off. Does it actually speed up your system? No. But does it make clicking through it a little bit faster? Yes. So we're going to click back, and now look at that. You see how that's just like a, right? A quick transition. There is no slow fade in transition. So that is one I suggest definitely playing around with. And you can also make it faster or slower, whatever you want to do. That's not an issue as well. Now you can scroll down until you find apps, and this is where we can change the processes a little bit. So for background process limit, it's usually at standard limit, which I believe is like 1 or 2. I usually put it at 3. Now, this allows more processes to run in the background. This can be a bad thing. This can be a good thing. And we can also do destroy every activity as soon as the user leaves it. Now, this is going to speed things up because it means you won't have processes run in the background. But for things such as a VPN that needs to run in the background, you might need background process limits to be at 2. That means you can run your VPN and something else at the exact same time. But if you have don't keep activities, when I close Netflix, it's going to force close. It's going to be closed 100%. And that just means that you won't have it running in the background. And when you restart it, it will restart like you closed it. Now, if all else fails, your device is running slow, you're frustrated, you've had it for 2 years and you're like, it used to run amazing. Go to your reset option. Now, this is on every device. This is going to do a factory reset. This means it's like the device was brand new again, at least as much as it can be for an older device. So you can click that. You can do a reset. It's going to destroy all of the internal storage. And it's basically like the first time you started it. So you might have to create a new profile depending on your device, all that. But this at least can help clean things out to maybe start fresh again. And that can make a big difference. Well, I hope these little tips and tricks help you out, and hopefully your device is working a little bit better now. If you guys want, you can also check out my website, upgradeguy.com. We have tons of great resources for your streaming devices, and we're currently building out some really exciting tools. So I'm excited to share those with you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.